Hi, Kim here from Able Recruitment. I want to talk to you today about age discrimination and whether it still exists in employment. And sadly, yes it does. I think we've come a really long way in terms of being more inclusive and avoiding discrimination in recent years, but age discrimination seems to be one that is still around. As with any sort of bias or discrimination, most of the time people don't even realise that they're doing it. They don't intend to or consciously believe that they're discriminating. There are some assumptions and stereotypes that I believe people fall into. So what you're battling when we're talking about age discrimination is the assumptions about speed, adaptability, cultural fit, and whether you'll work at the same salary. Let's have a chat about each of these four things in turn and then talk about what you might be able to do to overcome some of those stereotypes and assumptions. The first assumption or stereotype is around speed with technology, and this is around older people not being as fast with technology and not being as proficient as some of the younger ones. And that just simply comes from a belief that for the younger ones, technology is second nature for them, and oftentimes that's true. But it does then carry with it that contrast that perhaps if you haven't had to use technology early in your career and you haven't had to become good at it and use it a lot throughout your career, then perhaps you're going to be second best if you are comparing just that component against a younger person. The next assumption or stereotype is around adaptability. So this can be around being able to adapt and learn new systems, and it can also be an assumption that perhaps if you're older that you might be set in your ways and have rigid thinking styles and are not going to easily come along and join the team when the business is wanting to do something different or go in a new direction. The next one is cultural fit, and this is one of those broad, all-encompassing terms that can mean so many different things it almost loses its meaning. I do believe that there are times where cultural fit is quoted as the reason for somebody not getting the job, and perhaps the real reason could be tracked back to some sort of discrimination. But it's also a term that is used really commonly rather than being more specific. Because it's such a broad and sometimes overused term, unfortunately you may well know or not ever know the difference between whether you missed out on a role because of some sort of discrimination or something that's much more innocent. The last point is around salary, and quite often there's an assumption that if you've been in a more senior role or if you've been in the workplace for a longer period of time that you will be earning more money than someone younger, and the assumption that also goes with that is that you may not be genuinely willing to earn whatever this job is paying that you're going for if it's less than what you might have been earning before. If you're applying for a role that's paying less than what you have typically been earning, then that is going to be viewed with some suspicion, and that's because most employers just don't get your reason for being genuinely ready to take a drop in pay if that's the case. Often they're worried that you might accept the role, but then you may not stay in it and that you'll take off as soon as something better paying comes along. There's some pretty heavy topics, so how on earth do you move forward positively? Well, I don't think that you can just hope for the best. I think the first thing to do is accept that sometimes discrimination is real and not allow yourself to get angry and bitter about that, because as soon as you allow yourself to go there, you're going to come across as negative, and then you're going to start putting people off because of your attitude, not because of your age. The other thing that you can do to stop these types of labels being applied to you before you even get in front of somebody is to address each of those stereotypes as best you can up front. With technology, if you have a good handle on tech, show that in your CV by listing the relevant systems that you're using, and show that you're using them on a daily basis and what you're using those systems for. If you don't have those skills, can you quickly go and learn them? You may still come next best just judging on technology alone against somebody who is very skilled. But I'll tell you what, if you take control of your own learning and you show that initiative that you're prepared to do something different and you've got that willingness to learn, that's always going to be viewed positively. Another way you can possibly demonstrate that you're good with technology and this feeds into elevating your profile and your perception, just have a look at your online profiles. What happens if I look you up on LinkedIn? Am I going to see a haircut from the 80s? Am I going to see no haircut? Am I going to see a profile that's not been used in a long time and is obviously inactive? Get on there and tidy that up before you send out any applications. I guarantee you that's a good thing to do. So how do you show that you're adaptable? This is something where you might simply say you've changed industries, or you've moved job functions, or there might be something that came up within your actual job that required you to adapt. This will be really unique for each person. So have a good think about what's happened in your own career, and more so recently. The more recent, the more relevant for this one, and demonstrate that through your online profile and in your CV. With cultural fit, do your research. Find out what kind of organisation you might be going into. Find out who works there and what their interests are, what their backgrounds are. The more information you can get with this one, the better, and the more genuine you can be, the better. So if you can go into an interview and you can ask some questions which show a real authentic interest in that organisation and their values, and that might relate back to the way that you like to operate and your own values, then that's going to be perceived well. The reason why I'm saying to be genuine about that, other than it's just a good idea to always be genuine in any situation, I believe, but if you go into your job search looking for companies where you will just fit in without effort, then that's got to be a good thing. When we're talking about salary, this one's got to be dealt with cleanly and upfront. If you can get the opportunity to raise this issue rather than wait to be asked, that's going to be better, because that'll give you the opportunity to explain what your situation is, as much as you're comfortable in talking about. Maybe you've already paid off your mortgage, maybe you're at that stage of your career where the money's just not as important as job satisfaction. Whatever it is, and as long as that's true for you and you're comfortable sharing that information, it's better to get that explained in your own words up front, so that that takes out some of those questions for the employer. Because as we talked about before, oftentimes they will be genuinely concerned that you might take off for a better salary when another role comes along. And if they can understand and see what your reasons are for that not being the case, then you're going to be you'll be in a better situation to compete for a role against someone else who they may perceive as being more relevant at that salary point. Final couple of points to wrap up. If you think that you've been discriminated against and you're wanting to pursue that, by all means go and pursue that. I'm not saying not to do it. What I am saying is, overall, you probably never really know, and I do think that you're better acting on facts and acting on what you do know, because that will help you to be positive and to remain positive, which ultimately leads you to be more likely to be employed. I hope some of these tips might have helped you. If you're looking for other types of advice, have a look at some of our other videos. We're starting to do a few of these now. The editing and perhaps the filming is still a little bit amateur, but I really enjoy helping people, and these are the sort of topics that come up all the time in my work, and so I'm compelled to share some of that information in case it does help. Thanks.